Hello everyone and welcome to the podcast. My name is Nick Dove and this is the Afterlife Pod. So if you're new to the podcast, we basically explore lots of things here under the banner of the afterlife, but within that there is many things. There's spirituality, there's what is the purpose of this life? Because I know a lot of us can feel that way sometimes. Why are we here? Why is it so hard? What is the point? And we also look at what is God, who is God, is there a God, and if there is, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? What exactly is God? And as a continuation of that, we look at what the soul is. What does it mean to have a soul? We hear a lot about the soul from many religions and spiritual practices, and this podcast explores at times what the soul does, what it's capable of doing. Does it still have its senses that we have as a human? Where does it go? What does it experience when it's no longer in this physical form? And these are questions that this podcast attempts to go into and answer. So if that interests you, please continue listening. So the way this topic is explored, I do read an experience from either IANDS, IANDS.org, or NDERF, NDRERF. A near-death experience from one of those websites, and then go through it and see if there's any good points to commentate on, and just explore what this person has experienced in a little bit more detail. So today I've got one from ians.org. It's called Daughter Forgives Her Mother Following Shared Death Experience with Her Father. And this is the experience. My whole life changed when I followed my father to heaven and experienced a glimpse of the divine. Up to this point in my life, I had not been a believer in God. Neither was I an unbeliever. I was just content living my life without any kind of faith in a life beyond this earthly realm. I was busy with my career as a journalist and my roles as wife and mother. However, my father's death would turn my world upside down. I had a near-death-like experience, accompanying him part of the way on his divine journey. Many people doubt the truth of near-death experiences, citing so-called scientific explanations. Patients near death having hallucinations due to lack of oxygen, or having other brain chemical changes when death is near that produces false images. But I was not near death myself when my father passed over. Neither was I impaired by drugs or alcohol or anything else that might cause false perceptions. What I experienced that night when everything changed was the truth. All else in this world revealed itself as illusionary. Here is how the extraordinary revelation unfolded. I knew my father had advanced prostate cancer for which there was no cure, but I refused to accept that he would die. He was my lifetime hero, my fount of unconditional love, and I could not imagine my life without him in it. Certainly, I was troubled by his illness, but I fooled myself into thinking there could be a treatment that would allow him many more years on earth. One morning, as I readied myself to work, putting on my makeup at the sink in the bathroom, something shocking happened. My husband had already left for work, and my children were in school, so the house was unusually quiet. As I applied my lipstick, the entire master bedroom was enveloped with a fragrance so strong, so unmistakable, it shocked me to my core. It was the unique smell of my mother. I didn't know on a conscious level what my mother had smelled like, but subconsciously the connection of the baby to the mother was cemented by the smell. I knew without a doubt that my departed mother was trying to reach me. I put down my lipstick and sat in a nearby chair, completely stunned. What did she want to tell me? I opened myself to receiving her message. She told me 3 things. Number 1, your father is going to die very soon. Number 2, there is nothing you can do to change this. And number 3, I am going to help him. And then suddenly, the fragrance just withdrew. My mother had not been a loving presence in my life. When my sister and I were young, she hit us when we misbehaved. She didn't just use her hand to deliver a spanking. She struck us with sticks, hairbrushes, wooden panels, and more. We were afraid of her anger towards us. She was frequently drunk and sometimes disappeared for periods of a time. I remember her passed out most days when I came home from school, but she always put herself back together in time to prepare a nice dinner for my father. She was always attentive to him, but at times neglectful of her children. Her mean-spiritedness reached a towering hatred towards me one afternoon when I asked if I could visit a friend. Her smile curled into a sneer as she spoke to me. Dear Susan, aren't you the lucky one to feel loved and cared for every day of your life? Her voice got low as she snarled. It's a lie, little girl. I have never loved you. Not then, not now, not ever. Now leave me alone. I was devastated. Was this the truth? Even if it wasn't, what mother would ever want to deliver such a hurtful message to her child? I cried. But now I am an adult with children of my own. My deceased mother has come for a visit. She has just delivered an unexpected and unwelcome message to me about my father's impending death. Was she singling me out yet again for her uncommon cruelty? This felt very different though. On some level, I knew she had delivered the truth to me, and it broke through all my defences as I sat there and sobbed for a very long time. The following week, I had a vision of experiencing my life flashing before me in fast rewind, showing me that every decision I'd ever made was perfect for my journey and totally understandable. I never made a good or bad decision. The experience felt like a kind of purging of shame, regret, and unworthiness. All things were as they should be, and I need not second guess any decision I ever made. 2 weeks later, my father was hospitalized, and the siblings and grandchildren gathered by his side at Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where he had lived for so many years. On the 3rd day of the vigil, we could see that Dad was deteriorating. He floated in and out of a coma state much of the day. When it was time to go back to his condominium for the night, I lingered at my father's bedside. "I love you, Dad." And in a strong, clear voice, he answered back, "I love you too, Sue." The children and the grandchildren settled in for the night. My sister and I shared a king-size bed in one of the 2 condos my father owned. I couldn't sleep, but I was not anxious or upset, just quiet and calm. I could hear my sister snoring quietly beside me, and I knew she was sleeping. And then my mother's foretelling unfolded in sights and senses I didn't know I had. In the stillness of the night, from my father's condo, I saw him in his hospital bed with a gathering light coming up the upper right side of the bed. He was very frail. The gathering light was beyond words, inviting, intense, pure, a light unlike any I had seen before. I became aware of movement within the light and focused on that. I soon saw that my mother was in the light. She was part of the light, and that this was the light of life itself, the light of God. She was more beautiful than any woman I'd ever seen before. There was a purity and innocence in her essence. When I saw her this way, there was, in an instant, a complete forgiveness for anything I might have perceived as hurtful about her behaviour on this earth. When I saw her in the light, she was so holy, and that this was the truth about her then, now, and forever. I knew in this awareness that God is real, and His love bigger and mightier than any concept of love I had ever known before. In the earth realm, I could not conceive of a love like this, but in the light beside my father's bed, I understood a love beyond earthly perception. I also understood from my mother and God that we are here on this earth for one purpose: to love one another. We have made this life journey on earth so complicated as humans, but in the divine light, I understood that everything was truly simple. There was no sense of time in this vision, only an imparting of pure truth all at once. I saw my mother reach out to my father and lift him into her light, cradling him in her arms. Then the light began to fade and disappear from my vision. I then saw with my body's eyes that I was in bed in my father's condo, where I had been before the vision. My sister next to me still snoring. I glanced at the clock. It was just before midnight. In an hour or two, the phone rang, and it was the hospital telling me that my father had died. The nurse asked if I wanted to come view his body before they took it to the hospital morgue. So at about 2 a.m, we all, my sister, her daughter, my brother, my daughter and I, got in the car and drove to the hospital. We gathered around his body and said prayers of thanksgiving for his love in our lives. A nurse came into the room and I asked her if she knew when my father had passed on. She said she had come back to check on him just before midnight and could see he was near death. She left him alone and returned at 12:15 to find that he had died. Then I knew that my vision was real, and I began to sob at the sudden knowing of so many things. Mother had said she would help my father, and she did. She was holy and pure, and a child of God. God is love, and love is all. Our purpose in this realm is to love each other. Faith in the truth had come to me like a bolt of lightning, and I was forever changed. After my father's death, my sister became estranged from me. I did not understand why she despised me, but she made it clear she did not want me in her life. Though I tried in letters and phone calls to reconnect, I was very distraught by her hateful attitude. What followed this revelation was a 2-year period of what I had come to understand was grace. I was in tears most every day from the joy of the world I was seeing with new eyes. I saw the preciousness of everyone, including high school students in a class I taught who had been deemed troublesome by the school administration. I joined a church. My son and I attended Sunday services each week. I cried at the beauty I saw in the people and their rituals. I began to have some insight into why my husband's first wife was so mean to me. She saw me as a threat to her as a mother, and she feared she could lose her children's love because of my presence in their lives. This was utterly baseless, but with this understanding, I was able to marshal some compassion towards her. I only told a handful of people about my huge revelation, even though I wanted to shout to everyone. There is nothing to fear in this world. There is no death. I realized I could not give anyone the divine experience that changed my life, and that some people would think I was at best quirky and at worst insane. I especially didn't tell my sister because she was in such a troubled state. My story would only pour fuel on the fire, so to speak. She neither wanted nor could accept any comfort from me for some unknown reason. I went to a healing service at church with the laying on of hands. I had been quite troubled by my sister's feelings towards me and prayed she would come home to her senses. At this healing service, I decided to change my prayer. I asked God to help me surrender my pain about this relationship and accept my sister's decision to cut me out of her life. I waited in the line leading up to the altar for my turn to kneel there and let a healing helper lay hands on me. I did not expect anything to happen to me immediately, but it did. As this lovely churchwoman put both her hands on my head, I felt a gentle heat surround my head, a feeling of heat and light which filled my mind with awareness and took away all of the pain I had felt about my sister. I experienced a miraculous, instantaneous healing. I left the church feeling a great lifting of a burden and a beautiful sense of peace. It has been 20 years since all of this happened to me. Here are all the things I've gained. A rock-solid faith in God. No more fear of death. More loving and accepting of my brothers and sisters. An understanding of the importance of forgiveness. And knowing that love is all that is and is real. A deep gratitude to my Creator and all that is holy. More joy, more peace, more contentment. a grasp of a beautiful concept that giving and receiving are one and the same. And this is but a short list. As I live this earth dream to its conclusion, the insights keep unfolding and enriching me. I believe my amazing transformation has touched many loved ones in ways they might not even be aware or could express in words. After all, I have learned there are senses beyond our physical bodies that can guide us to truth. The question still remains in my mind. Why was I given the gift of this brilliant and life-changing revelation? In recent years, I have become a student of the book, A Course in Miracles, considered to be the words of Jesus, scribed by Dr. Helen Sushman. One of the most important concepts in A Course in Miracles, perhaps the most important, is the goal of atonement for each of us. Atonement is the undoing of error brought about by unloving thoughts. According to the Course, we can achieve salvation through atonement. And the means for this most valuable goal is forgiveness. I think, perhaps, my mother gave me the gift of this divine vision as a part of her own atonement. She wiped the slate clean, so to speak, by allowing me to be witness to her holiness, thus dissolving any wrongdoing of the past. When I understood the truth of who she really is in God's eyes, perfect, innocent, and holy, nothing she had done in this earthly realm mattered at all to me. It was as if it had all been undone. Thank you, sweet mother, and thank you, dear God. Wow, that was a lovely, lovely, lovely experience. I really enjoyed reading that one. It was well written. It was a beautiful message and an interesting story too. So it had all those three things that make it good for me to read and hopefully good for you to hear as well. I love these stories where the person has gone from a total non-believer, not really believing much about anything more than this physical realm we all live in, and then totally flipping that and becoming a strong believer in God and believing that there's more to this existence than what we all see and experience on a daily basis. And this is because I've had a similar experience myself. I was an atheist for 45 years. I didn't have any belief in God at all, or anything more than me being this body, me being Nick Dove, and that would one day die, and that would be it. And now that it's just accepted for me that there is more to this experience than what I thought there was. There is a God, and there's a universe that has a lot more to offer than what I ever dreamed was possible. But that's not to say that there's moments where I lose a bit of faith and life becomes a little bit overwhelming and I start doubting myself and doubting my belief in God or a higher power. And I think that's just a common thing for all humans to go through. We go through the ups and downs, and during those lower moments and that disconnection from the universe and God, it becomes it just sort of snowballs into a bit of confusion for me and a bit of lack of faith and like I said, disconnection from God, and I start to question, did this happen, did that happen, am I going crazy, is this really how it is? Am I really experiencing on a day-to-day basis what God is, and is God really in my life? Like, is this even possible? I thought God only, entered people's lives in books like the Bible. So how could this be happening to me? But most of the time, I'd say, 90% of the time, I've got a pretty good understanding of what I'm experiencing on a human level. I can't, put it into words. It's just this connection I can feel, and it's a good thing. And like I constantly say, hopefully you can get this connection into your own life and experience what it's like, because it makes living this challenging life a lot easier. And I don't know how you can really make that happen, connection happen. For me, I wasn't really welcoming it. It just happened for me because of a series of events that it was almost like I was spiritually attacked, and at the same time there was loving beings come into my life. So it was for me unwelcomed, unexpected, unpredictable thing, my spiritual awakening. But from my experience and from reading these near-death experiences, the way to improve that connection or to get more of it in your life is simply to ask for it. To simply ask God or the universe or the higher power or your higher self that you want more evidence that they are there. You want to know them better. You want to experience what you are hearing in all these experiences I read out on a weekly basis. You want that in your life, and this is the only advice I can give you, people. I don't know if it'll work for you, because like I said, from my experience, my own personal experience, what happened was uninvited. So it's just random, but I think it can't help to at least look for it, welcome it, ask for it, and hopefully it will happen for you as well. But yeah, let's have a look through this one again. So the first thing of interest in this experience is it is not just a normal near-death experience. It is actually what is called a shared death experience. So this is when one person's dying, and then someone else also experiences their transition from physical form into the next dimension. And in this case, it's a daughter who is watching her father cross over, and her mother gets involved in this experience as well. So there's three factors here. There's three main players, I guess. There's the woman, the mother, who has already passed away. It doesn't say when, but she's already dead. She's no longer in this physical realm. Her father, who's in the process of dying, he's got what has he got? He's got prostate cancer, and then there's the daughter who absolutely adores her father, who is not accepting the fact that he is dying. She's just putting on a stern face and hoping there's some miracle that will happen and he can get some treatment and survive. But at the back of her mind, she's realizes this is a bit delusional, and she sort of understands that he's going to be dead soon, but just can't quite bring herself to accept that. So in this process where he's getting towards the end and she just can't accept what's going on, she has a moment where she's alone in her house, just getting ready for the day, and suddenly out of nowhere she feels this, she starts smelling this smell of she doesn't really go into what that means. She doesn't really say it's a fragrance or a perfume or deodorant or anything like that. She just says she can sense this smell, and instantly she knows exactly what that smell was. And she says that smell is her mother, her deceased mother, and she is very surprised by this, but instantly she knows also that this is her mum trying to contact her. And this is what people say when they are sometimes, it's one of the ways spirit can communicate with us is through smell. Might be perfume, might be cigarette smoke, it might be deodorant, aftershave, or anything, sort of flower that your deceased loved one might have had in their house or in the front garden. It's never happened to me. I've never had tried to be contacted in that way. I've had lots of other ways of contact in terms of the other side reaching out to me more in experiences, things I see, things I read, um, sometimes, verbally in the head. It's thoughts getting put in there, and it's tricky when you say there's thoughts getting put in your head, and that's from the other side, but because it's hard to distinguish thought that isn't yours from one that is from another source. But when you pay close attention to it, and you realize you realize your own thought process and your own thought patterns, and when you get something a bit left of center come in there, it's when I usually sit up and take notice, because it's generally means that there's some sort of intervention going on there. That's what I like to think it is anyway, and I could be called mad for saying that, but this is what I believe, and I'm not going to shirk away from that. So this is how her intervention happens anyway. She notices the smell. So yeah, for all of you out there who have had have had some weird things like that happen too, perhaps this is what is going on. You could be trying to be contacted by someone you've lost. The mum then says to her, it doesn't really say how this communication occurs, but she just says, the woman having this, telling this story, she says that she becomes open to receiving a message. Now, I don't know what that means. She doesn't go into detail of what opening myself to receive her messages was all about. I'd love to know myself how this works, because for me, it just sort of happens, and there's no real method to the madness. It just occurs. But if there is a way to opening yourself up, I'd like to know about it and encourage this communication and get more information. But she says that her mother tells her three things. Firstly, the father's going to die soon. Secondly, you can't do anything to stop him dying. And three, she's going to help him when he does die. Then this lady goes into a little bit of detail as to the relationship she had with her mother when she was still alive, and it sounds like it was a pretty non-loving one. There was lots of violence, lots of drinking and alcohol, and just general horribleness towards her. She would say things like, "I never loved you, not now, not then, not ever, leave me alone." And I guess I'm not a parent, so I don't know why someone would say that to their kids. I don't think uh, I can't recall my parents ever saying anything that horrible to me, but I can imagine it happens on a regular basis, because we're all humans, and uh, even if your kid is, and if you're having a bad day and your kid's upsetting you, I'm sure some pretty horrible things can be said and exchanged, but even so, that is a hard thing to read, and it must have been a very hard thing for her to experience, being told that by her own mother that she doesn't love her. And yeah, it must have hurt a lot. So, the relationship here with this person having the experience and her mother was not a good one. So she must be kind of thinking, why are you here? Like, why are you here, Mum? Why are you here to tell me this stuff? I don't really get it. And at this point in the experience, it's just these three messages and the smell of her fragrance and whatever that is. There's no uh, there's still a lot of animosity there towards the mother. She doesn't say at this point in the experience that she is welcoming her mother's presence. It's just a weird thing for her to happen, because at the start of this experience, if you remember, she said she didn't believe in God or spirit or anything like that at all. So this sort of thing must have been a big shock to her. So yeah, she's questioning why this messaging is happening. She's wondering, is this my mother, coming back and just being her old self and just, you know, messing with my head again and telling me stuff that is really hard for me to accept? Or is this the truth? Is she come back with a different mission to perhaps help me this time, and maybe she's actually being honest and saying something that is going to happen, and maybe I should be a bit more prepared for this event coming up. And then the mum goes, and life goes on as normal, except obviously she's weighing up this information she's heard from her and whether to and what exactly she should do about it. So, she says a week goes by, and then she has another amazing experience. This time it's like a life review, but you got to remember these life reviews usually happen when the person is dead or in the process of dying, and their brains are not conscious, they're not breathing, their hearts aren't beating. And in this case, she says, just suddenly, out of the blue, she has her life just flashing before her. And she says, and it's a little bit sort of a different life review. It doesn't go from baby to present moment, it goes reverse, it goes backwards. So it goes from her life, her age at that point in time, through to her as a young child in reverse, as she says. And she says that when this happens, it's a good way of her experiencing it, because she can see the event, and then she goes back to the decision that she took to get to the experience she just lived. So she goes experience, then the decision she made to get to that experience, and then she goes experience, and then decision she made. So she gets to see, and this is what she's getting out of this experience, how her decision making has led to the experiences she's had. And she says during this life review in reverse, she doesn't feel she ever made a good or a bad decision, and that everything that has happened in her life is exactly how it should have unfolded. And this is a good lesson for all of us. There is no shame or regret or unworthiness, to use English words that aren't really, going to give you exactly the meaning I'm trying to get through here. But there's no decision making that is good or bad. It is what it is. So, and some things are going to work out in ways that are more pleasing to you, and others are going to be decisions you might regret. But that is something this experience is telling us that we should not be doing. We should not regret these decisions we made, because there's no such thing as a good or a bad decision. So how can you regret something that is neither good or bad? You can't. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but it's hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I don't know if I'm conveying exactly what I'm trying to get through here in a way that is easy to understand, but yeah, basically no regrets is what I'm trying to say. And every decision you make, it's going to have a side, parts of it that will work out and parts of it that won't. So try to focus on the parts of it that did work out. No matter where you are or what you're doing, you can always see some good points in anything, even if you are in dire straits and really ill or death is near, there's always something you can look at in your experience that can be positive, and you can always try and spin it that way if you try. I'm no expert at that, but I have noticed that myself. If life is going really hard, really crap, and it's just too much, I try now over the last few months to look at something that is a little bit more positive, because you might be having a terrible day, but there's still aspects of that day that are joyful, and if you look for that, you will find them. It's like you just gotta control your thinking and use your awareness to put your focus and your thoughts into something that isn't going to hurt as much. And like I said, when you're feeling negative and down and heavy, it's hard to do, but it is possible. She has this reverse life review, and so that's her second pretty incredible spiritual mystical experience in a couple of weeks, and now she's getting to the point. It says a few days later, she's with her dad, who's starting to deteriorate rapidly, and I see this in my job in aged care regularly. You just know when someone is getting closer to death. Their breathing becomes more laboured. They stop eating. They're the signs are there, and it's a pretty universal thing, I think, for humans when they get to a certain point of illness or age, that the end becomes pretty clear. Sort of a few days to a week before it actually happens. And in this case, this lady has been made aware that he is getting worse and probably hasn't got that much longer. So she and her sister go and sit by his bedside. And it's getting up to day 3 now, and her and her sister leave the father's bed and go back to his apartment, which is nearby. And so they leave him in the hospital bed and drive to this apartment, and she's sharing a bed with her sister in a king-size bed, and she lies down to go to sleep, and all of a sudden, before she can drift off, she's experiencing life back in that room again. She's somehow transported back into this room, and this for her, doesn't feel like a dream. This is as real as it comes. She's in this other room, and there's a light in this room, and she says it's beyond words. It's inviting, it's intense, it's pure, a light unlike any I had seen before. So in other words, a light that we can't describe in the words of a human. It's something that is inexplicable but incredibly beautiful, and something that has to be seen or experienced to, I guess, have a better understanding or an understanding at all of what exactly it is like. And then she notices that her mother is in this light, and she's actually a part of this light, and this light she describes and experiences as the light of God. So I don't know what that would look like. The light, is firstly inexplicable, and then secondly, she sees her mother in this light. Does that mean she senses her spirit or a soul, or can she actually see her old physical form, or is it just more of a knowing that she's there? It doesn't really go into much more detail. Oh, actually, it does. She says she does see the physical form because the mother was more beautiful than any woman she had ever seen before, and it's just her essence she's seeing. So she's falling in love, I guess, with the mother's soul, not so much how her mother looked. And this is what I'm getting anyway from this experience, that she's experiencing a side to her mum that she never knew in the physical form. And she says there's something truly holy about her, and she sees what she's truly like she sees her beyond the faults she has as a woman and a human in this life. And for me, that's great to know that people can be, horrible and live a life that, from your perspective and my perspective, might look pretty nasty and mean, and live in a way that hurts others, and yet still end up in a place of connection to God and heaven. And doesn't actually mean that if we live lives as sin, as we used to call it in the old days, or religion likes to call it, that you don't necessarily die and lose a connection with God. There's still, a place in heaven for all of us, no matter how we behave in this world. And, it makes me think if we need people, unfortunately, in this world who are horrible at times, because they can, I don't know, make us suffer, I guess. And this can push us towards not being like that ourselves, and push us closer to God in this world. And I don't, understand truly exactly why we can get some monsters down here and what their purpose is. But, the more experiences you read, the more you see that there is a reason for them being here, and they take these roles on before they come here, knowing that they're going to be like that. And, uh, you know, they do it for a whole variety of reasons. And, it's like this thing, this theory that we come here to experience darkness, and we guess we need some people to be darker to help us experience that. As sad and horrible as that sounds from a human level, I think there might be a little bit of truth to that, as upsetting as it might be for some of you. But what does that mean in terms of where we're going as a race, as a species, in our evolution? I don't know. Is there a way we can totally eliminate the darkness from this planet? Is this part of the blueprint for us as a species to evolve into more a species aligned more with love and light? And then what happens then? How do we experience darkness if we're all love and light beings? Or does just the whole planet change, and it no longer is what it used to be in the future? Obviously it's impossible for me to know the answer to that, but this seems to be the direction this planet is taking, just based on what people see in the future from some of these experiences, and some of the spiritual teachers we have on the planet today. So that is the direction we are heading in. So obviously now we're living in a world that is full of darkness and light as well. So it's hard to really picture exactly what that will look like, but it can only be a thing that is going to be good at reducing suffering. So yeah, the quicker we can move towards loving and lighter beings, and if that's even going to be if that is even a thing that is coming up, the better. Because the less suffering we can do is obviously good for everyone. So yeah, she's just experiencing this love and this light, and she's just she's there's a few things happening here. She's no longer in a body, so her body's in another building. She's now in this presence of this hospital room. She's seeing the light of God, and she's seeing her mother within this light, the essence of her mother. And I guess this is sort of saying she has connected to God, and she is with God now, and she's come with God down to pick up her father's essence. Her father's dying, his father's body is dying, and the soul is about to soon be released to God and to his deceased wife, and they're there to pick him up, so to speak, and to um, you know make this transition easy for him. Which is, and then she sees her mother reach down and pick up the dad and cradle him into the light, and then the light begins to fade and disappear from her vision, and then suddenly she's back in this bed with her sister, and she glances at the clock and it's just before midnight. So yeah, that's the the gist of what this experience is about. It's about a shared death experience. So the woman is nowhere near death herself. She's fit, she's healthy, she's actually an atheist, but then suddenly she has all these experiences that seem to say to her that she is missing a big part of what this life could be like. And like most people who have a near-death experience, and this isn't, I guess, a near-death experience, it's a couple of things. If you want to put it into a category, it's a shared death experience where she herself doesn't know even either actually die. It's an out-of-body experience, and these things culminate in a spiritually transformative experience because of the way she starts to live her life after this happens. But yeah, so this happened at midnight or just before. So, and then a couple of hours later, they get a call from the hospital saying, "Okay, look, your dad has died." And she asked the nurse, "What time did he actually pass over?" And it's exactly the same time as this experience of her father going into the light with her mother happened, and this gives her a little bit more confidence in what she saw as a real thing. So she just realizes that her father is now with her mother, and her mother was a holy and pure child of God, and she realizes that God is love, and this love is an entity. It's a thing that is real. It's just another good way of someone explaining what exactly God is, what their experience of God is, and coming from someone who is an atheist, for me, gives it even more credibility because they're not brainwashed into an idea of what they've been told God is, or not brainwashed, but taught what God is. For me, as a younger kid, I was always taught God was like this big old man in the sky, and yeah, obviously someone who hasn't had their conditioning in such a way to make them think God is this or God is that, to give us I guess a pure and clean experience of what God is gives it more credibility to me anyway, personally. So yeah, she says this faith has just come out like a bolt of lightning and has changed her forever. But then something weird happens. Her sister suddenly estranges her. She doesn't know why. There's no reason for it. She just suddenly is disowned by her sister, and this really, really upsets her. She doesn't. She's just lost her dad, and now she seems to think her sister has just disowned her, and she doesn't know why. This is giving her a lot of troubles, but. In the meantime, she decides to join a Sunday service and go to church once a week. And here, this is obviously a pretty remarkable change for her because she didn't believe in God, and now she's regularly attending church and experiencing that. And she says, like a lot of people who have the. I'm just trying to find the bit. So she keeps going to church, and she is asking God to remove this pain of her sister's decision to cut her out of her life, away from her. And this is a good bit of advice, I think, for all of us. If we have got some pain and hurt in our lives that we just ourselves can't get rid of, whether that's jealousy or hatred or grief or whatever it is, those fear, anything, it's those emotions that are just horrible to have inside you, and to have to experience regularly is just makes life really difficult to live. And this is what A lot of people do. They say, okay, universe, you take it away. You take this pain from me. It's all yours. I don't want it anymore. And not all of us get this incredible intervention like her, but in her case, she says exactly what I just said, and then goes to church, and then feels this woman who's a healer touch her, and as she does, this pain that she's feeling about the abandonment of her sister is suddenly removed, and she's able to walk out of church with a great sense of peace and a great lifting of a burden. But it doesn't actually say if this was a long-lasting thing or if it's just a momentary break from this pain she's feeling. But either way, it's a pretty miraculous thing. So yeah, there's 4 or 5 pretty huge things, and I guess the next major thing is how she continues to evolve as a person, as a spiritual being here. She goes through this long list of things that have happened to her in the 20 years since she had this shared death experience now. So firstly, she says she has this huge rock solid faith in God. She knows God's there. She's connected to God. She has gone 360 or 180, whatever the saying is, from non-believer to believer. And with this faith in God, she no longer fears death. She's obviously seen her father pass over and what happens, and she's seen the light and seen that she must be a part of this light too. Therefore, there is no reason for her to fear death. And I guess the same should go for all of us. We don't need to have an experience like this to uh, know exactly what she's talking about, because we should just believe what we're hearing here. I know that's hard, and I know that sort of runs counter to what I say sometimes, that we need to experience all these things for ourselves to get a true grasp of what it's like, and we shouldn't rely on what other people say as a means for us believing exactly what has happened to them. But at the same time, we can use these experiences as pointers and a good bit of wisdom in terms of what we truly are, and keep asking for these sort of experiences ourselves so we can experience it for ourselves and understand firsthand what exactly they're talking about. There's no reason why not. There's absolutely no reason why you and me can't have a spiritually transformative experience like this. So, yeah, fingers crossed for all of you, and I hope you get one as vivid as this. And if you do, email me at podafterlife@gmail.com, or if you've had any other experiences. It doesn't have to be major. Just I'd love to hear them. I love hearing about spiritually transformative experiences because it's become such a big part of my life. So she understands the importance of forgiveness. She knows that love is real and that's all there is. She practices gratitude towards God, and it's just become a really holy person. And she can see the beauty in everything now. She says, she goes to, she just sees people going about their daily business and can see the miraculous nature of who they are, and is just blown away by the beauty this life can bring. And you see this quite often with people who have had these divine interventions. They start talking about it, or just and they start crying. They just are absolutely blown away by, I don't know what it is. Just the emotion gets the better of them. Is it, are they reconnecting with that love and that light, and that is just reminding them of how beautiful they actually are, and this tears them up, or are they just grateful they've had an experience where they're transformed, or I don't know what it is, but I've listened to lots of near-death experiences, and you quite often see people get emotional when they relive what they've gone through, and why wouldn't you? I mean, for me, that just adds more validity. Sorry, I can't say that right now. As you can probably hear from my voice, I'm getting a little bit tired, but you get what I'm trying to say. Their experience becomes, a little bit more valid when they do get emotional, because for me, that's says it was very true to them, and you can't, unless you're a very talented actor, it's hard to make up emotions and cry on the spot. So yeah, that's about it. There's a couple of lessons in there. There's something about atonement at the end, which is, she says, is the undoing of error brought about by unloving thoughts. She also mentions something about a book called A Course in Miracles. Now, this A Course in Miracles book comes up quite often in these experiences and spiritually and in all sorts of contexts in spiritual literature. It seems to be a pretty life-changing book for some people. I've actually got it. I haven't read it yet. I hope to get around to doing that one day. But apparently, this book is the words of Jesus, and it is channeled through this lady called Dr. Helen Schuschman. So if that interests you, yeah, definitely check it out. It sounds interesting. I want to get there myself. I think I have had a bit of a look at it, and I did find it a little bit hard to read. But that's just my perspective. I'm not, I'm not the best reader, so I might look for a audio version or something on YouTube where someone's reading the book out. And that's generally a better way for me to learn and to take something in. But yeah, A Course in Miracles, go and check it out, go and buy it. Sure, you'll be able to find a copy at your library or somewhere on Amazon, something like that. And if you do, I'd love to hear what you thought of it or think of it after you read it. But let's take a minute or two off while I catch my breath. So, yeah, I'll just finish up there with some thoughts of what I've been running through my mind or what I've been experiencing over the last, I don't know, few days or weeks or whatever. I've just been fascinated that I'm this little person having this little experience, and it's so individual to everyone else and it's so disconnected. But these experiences, these near death experiences, say that, once we leave this body, it becomes the opposite. We become a lot more connected, we become more one. So I've been really appreciating the fact that I'm this little body that can see and think and walk and talk and do all these things, and it just feels so unique. It feels so separate from everything else, and yeah, I think that's a thing that we all overlook. That it is an amazing little thing. We have this little body which gives us this own little unique perspective on the world, and lets us walk around and travel and do all these things that we love to do and not like to do so much. But yeah, and I was just sort of been thinking, like, what, why am I in this human body? Like, why aren't I in a bird or a frog in a fish or something like that. And is that exactly the same thing as what is in me? Is it what is in them is the same as in me? Is in terms of the awareness in me the same as the awareness in anything else that's jumping around or flying around? Is it the same thing? And these experiences seem to say yes, they are. That all of these creatures have a I don't know, a consciousness in them that allows them to experience the life that they live in whatever form it is. So then I started thinking, what happens? You know, we hear all about these human like soul experiences. What happens when an animal with less intelligence crosses over? Are they met by beings that they can connect to? Like if it's a dog, is there other dog um, figures there for them to meet them and help them cross over? And is there something different or special or unique about the human soul, or is it just we've got bigger brains and are able to overthink and overanalyze like I'm probably doing right now everything? And I don't know. I just thought I'd share some random nicked up thoughts with you and leave you to chew on that and see what you think yourself, and or just totally forget about it and write it off as more randomness from me. But anyway, thank you for listening. I love you all. I will talk to you next week. Be good.